So recently I've been on a quest to find the most obscure areas in all of Halo, and I think I found the loneliest area in all of Halo 3. So, can we get to it? Let's give it a shot! So in the never-ending quest to find hidden areas that otherwise would never get any attention, I think I found the perfect target on the mission The Covenant in Halo 3. There's an entire mountainside that isn't visible from the normal game. Even if you wanted to explore it, you couldn't. There are map barriers everywhere. For this challenge, I wanted this to be not just an obscure area, but one that hasn't been reached before. An area so obscure that no one would even try to reach it. Just beneath this cliffside lies the loneliest area in all of Halo 3. This rock. The ledge with the green grassy patches above this rock is not explorable. Like I said, there are map barriers preventing you from getting to this area. And this rock is in the middle of the water, and to get to it, you have a sure death drop that you would not be able to survive. And even if you could survive it, the distance to get to the rock is too far to jump. So while this may be just a small rock in the middle of the water, this may be one of the most difficult challenges that I've faced yet. But luckily, I thought I had the perfect foolproof solution. Years ago, I discovered that you could jump in this Pelican on the Covenant if you got to it fast enough. And this Pelican has the ability to phase through walls. Now to make things even sweeter, there is a Gauss Warthog and a tank that this Pelican drops off. So that means if I had one player get in the Pelican, I could very easily move them with either the Gauss Warthog turret or the tank. So my plan was to shoot the Pelican over and over and over until I broke outside of the map barrier with the second player, and then once I did this, all you'd have to do is get out of the Pelican. And then we could try to find a way to the rock. I set this up and found immediately that this was somewhat successful. And quicker than I thought, actually. Every time I would blast the Pelican with the Scorpion tank, it would move 3 or 4 feet. Now coming into this, I thought that moving this Pelican outside of the map was going to take an excruciating amount of time, and very early on I found that that was not the case. I was able to move the Pelican to the mountainside in under 2 minutes. What I thought was going to be a basically impossible challenge was going according to plan. And then, as I tried to hit the Pelican further, I struggled to get it up in the air. Every time I would shoot it, it would just keep going sideways. And eventually, it drifted into the mountain, which I figured was no problem. Like I said at the beginning, the Pelican can phase through walls. But then the second player that I had in the Pelican died immediately. So I'd have to reset this. Now my assumption was obviously that if the Pelican could phase through walls, it could probably just go right through the map barriers that prevent you from getting to this ledge and ultimately this rock. So the second go around, instead of just hitting the Pelican straight to the mountain and trying to get it above it, I first blasted it off the edge of the cliffside. My plan was to just take it through the air all the way to the ledge. But as I was hitting this, the Pelican seemingly was getting stuck on this map barrier. And then it drifted into the cliffside and the player inside died again. Although I couldn't get this to work yet, I still was pretty hopeful, and on the third attempt, my approach was a little bit different than the 2 times before. I was going to blast the Pelican as far as I possibly could backwards so that it would be in the open air. Then when I had it as far back as I possibly could and it stopped, I would move to the side of it and start shooting it so I could get to one of the cliff sides without the player inside the Pelican actually touching the mountain. Now this was my backup plan, but in my head I thought this was a surefire backup plan. The problem I encountered, however, is that the Pelican, when you're not shooting at it, will continuously drift. It wants to be in its natural position, so it will always sort of be drifting towards the inside of the map. Now obviously, as you just saw, I got stuck on this tree, so I lost a lot of this Pelican positioning. Now my suspicions about the map barrier preventing the Pelican from going any further were somewhat confirmed by this attempt. Even though I was shooting the Pelican consistently straight back, it just kept drifting along what looked like an invisible line. And even though this was the best attempt I had yet, the Pelican was once again drifting into the mountainside. So with the second player, I knew I was going to die. So I tried getting out of it to see if I was actually breaking outside of the normal map barrier. And I didn't. So now my surefire plan was crumbling. I had one last hope, the Gauss Warthog that I mentioned at the beginning. And I found out pretty quickly that I should have been using this from the jump. It moved the Pelican a lot faster because you can shoot a lot faster, and I was able to successfully get it to the cliffside and around the mountain. Now I just needed to hit it all the way back to the cliffside outside of the map barrier. But as I continued shooting it, I found that there was a limitation to how far it would go. It seemed like, again, that map barrier was just catching the Pelican and preventing the player inside from going any further. It seemed like at this point it was just a designed game mechanic that I couldn't get around, but eventually I got the Pelican so far outside of the map that I couldn't actually see it. It was behind the trees on top of the cliffside. Once again, the Pelican started drifting into the cliffside, so I figured I'd get out of it and see if I was out of the map barrier and whether or not this was actually a viable option. Because if not, my one and only plan to be able to get to this area and to the loneliest rock was basically screwed. I had nothing else. And when I tried to get out of the Pelican with the second player, he immediately died because he was partially in the cliff. So, now what? Well, I think the Pelican idea might be screwed because it really doesn't want to break out of the outside map barrier. I'm at a loss. I really thought that was going to work. That was like my main plan. Now I'm at a loss, dude. 45 minutes in, nothing to show for it. The only thing that I could think of to do at this point was to progress forward through the mission and get a ghost. If I got a ghost, I could then go up to a point towards the end of the mission and time travel back to where I previously was. And I figured, well, maybe the map barriers won't exist because you're not supposed to be in that part of the mission at that part of the game. Wow. I was gonna say, what an idiot that grunt is. But he killed the Master Chief, so... Okay, I'm gonna try to elastic barrier break now. I have to time travel first, though. So if you take a ghost all the way up towards where the middle of the second tower is, at the end of the mission, the Covenant, you will do what is called a time travel glitch. Essentially, it's a load zone overlap from one previous section of the mission where the textures meet the next part of the mission. Hitting this load zone then teleports you, quote-unquote, back in time. Now, I assumed there was going to be elastic barriers still at this part of the mission, even if I got back there, so I wanted the ghost to be able to break those. However, what happened was I lined up in a texture where my ghost was in a mountain, so I'd have to do this again. And the trick to doing this is you need to line up your ghost on a part of the mountain that you can't see that isn't fully in the mountain. That way your ghost will actually load on top of the mountain instead of in it. If it gets in it, you'll get stuck in a time lock where you can't actually move because you're stuck in the map. I'm screwed. So even though I didn't have a ghost to potentially break through the elastic barrier that existed earlier, I wanted to see if I could go up to this cliffside and see if somehow there were miraculously no barriers. Why is this part? There's no barrier on this part? Now, I wasn't totally sure how I was going to even get to this cliffside because there's a giant tower in front of you that is, well, in a cliff, so there's steep ledges all around this. But I quickly found out that there was a way that you could seemingly navigate to this cliffside, and now I just needed to see if the cliff was too steep to walk on, and if I could walk up it, would I hit the normal map barrier that exists when you play through this for the first time? Can I just walk all the way there? Am I gonna hit that weird barrier again? No way! The barrier's eliminated and you could just walk down here? Oh, yes. Wow, my easy cop-out method was the way to get down here all along. Oh shit, well the second player can't die, but here you go. Here's a ledge you probably never explored. I had no idea there were no map barriers here. And I can't get the second player to die because they're stuck in a wall over there somewhere. Here it is. The true loneliest ledge. Wow, that's beautiful. Bright. It really is beautiful. But is there a way to get to the loneliest rock? My excitement that my last-ditch effort option actually worked was quickly extinguished when I got to this ledge. Now, although this is just a simple rock, being up close and personal to it, I was starting to realize that it was much further away than I initially thought. I first thought that it might be slightly challenging, but I would be able to jump off the cliff with a piece of equipment, and if that equipment jumped, I would be able to make it all the way to the rock, which is why you see me with a deployable cover in this situation. So although I had discovered an extremely easy method to get here, the final destination was going to be my most challenging part by far. How was I actually going to get down there? Well, I thought if I could get a ghost to this area, I might just be able to boost off the edge really fast, get out of the ghost, jump off a piece of equipment, and make it all the way to the rock. So I set this up. Once I got to the third tower with the ghost, I was able to successfully frag grenade it over the interior ledges and poles of this tower. I made it all the way to the cliffside, and then as I was trying to get down, I went too fast and in the wrong direction and died. What the fuck? The very unfortunate part about trying to pull this off and actually land on this rock is that because we're time traveling, there are no checkpoints in the previous mission. You already completed it. There's nothing to get a checkpoint for. So that means that every single time that I fail, I have to get a ghost and take it all the way to the time travel spot and then pass the tower all the way down the cliff sides to where the rock is located. And every single time I have to do this, it's multiple minutes.
Okay, I figured out a better path. Now I'm going to try to get down to the loneliest rock in this entire game.
So although I had invested an hour and a half into this, I had finally made it down to the lower ledge with a ghost. Now I just needed to execute on my plan. Boost off the edge, get out of the ghost in midair, jump off a piece of equipment, land on top of the rock.
Okay.
I'd invested too much time in this session to no success, but the next day, I was able to get the ghost to this ledge from mission start in under 5 minutes. I'd gotten pretty effective with this. On my second attempt of the day, I was able to get to the lower ledge, and I employed the same method before of boosting off the ledge with the ghost and trying to equipment jump. However, even though this attempt I felt was really good, I still really wasn't that close to the rock. So even though this rock was within skipping distance, I knew that my plan to boost off the map with the ghost was not going to work, so I would have to find something else entirely. The third time around, I came up with an idea that I thought might actually work. Instead of using the ghost to boost, I would use the ghost to launch. In previous tricks, I've had to launch using the ghost by standing on one wing and then sticking the other wing with a plasma grenade. If you get lucky, you'll actually launch pretty far. Now, I still kept my piece of equipment because my plan was to launch above the rock, fall down, and then as my fall timer was about to expire and I was about to die, I would equipment jump to reset this so that I could then land on the rock. At least, this was my hypothetical plan. So even though getting here costs multiple minutes every single time, on my 6th attempt of the day, I discovered something that might just be the key. You can launch far enough to hit a barrier that slows your fall. This barrier is close enough to the rock that I can fall slowly enough and still be able to deploy my equipment and jump off of it. With this in mind, any attempts where I hit the barrier, this was the goal. I'm so stupid. No. Come on. Right on top. There we go. Most obscure location in all of Halo 3. Also, one of the most difficult to reach. As you guys could see, standing on it is like a death sentence. Basically, I have to land on the very tip. The loneliest ledge and the loneliest rock. Yippee!